Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jasmine. If you have no idea who I am a first generation low income undergraduate at Stanford University, and I made this channel to help other first generation low income students like myself get better access to higher education through my college related videos. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about the semester system. My last upload was about the quarter system, so make sure to go check that out. Also make sure to subscribe so you can see all of the other super amazing videos that I make about college. In my last video, I talked about the pros and cons of the quarter system, and now I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of the semester system as someone who has experienced both systems. So the semester system is the one that most people are familiar with because most high schools, public high schools, and high schools all around, and actually most colleges are under this semester system. So this is the most common system that people are most familiar with, but I offer the perspective of someone who has experienced both systems so that you can determine whether or not you like or have a preference for either one. So the main differences between the quarter system and the semester system is how they divide the school year. So the quarter system divides the school year into 4 different quarters, that's why they're called quarters, and those are the fall quarter, winter quarter, spring quarter, and summer quarter, whereas the semester system, they divide the school year into 3, whereas the first semester, second semester, and your summer break. So for both systems, the summer term is actually optional, and most students either go to school for fall, winter, and spring, or for the first and second semester. For the quarter system, each quarter is 10 weeks of instruction, and that's 3 quarters in 1 year. If you go to school for 4 years, that is 12 quarters that you have for your undergraduate career, as opposed to the semester system, it is about 15 weeks for each semester, and since you take 2 semesters per year and 4 years, that is 8 semesters that you're going to be working with. Now, they both technically have the same amount of weeks, since 10 times 3 is 30 and 15 times 2 is also 30, so technically you have the same amount of time within those courses, but they're just divided differently. Now that I've established the differences between the quarter system and the semester system, I can start with the pros of the semester system. So obviously this system is a lot longer. It is longer in the sense of each semester is longer than 1 quarter. You get an extra 5 weeks with the same course content that you're working with, which within itself has its own pros and cons. The pros of being in one class for a longer period of time is that you're in that class for a longer period of time. So if you really like the material, if you're getting really into it, then you have more time to explore it, to understand it, and that is another pro, where you have more time to be able to fully understand the material, even if it's a very difficult class and you may not like it, but you have more time to process it and develop your skills and actually really understand the material and go into depth with it. As opposed to a quarter system, it's a lot more fast-paced. So at least in my own experiences, sometimes I don't understand the concept, but the class is moving and it's not waiting for me, so I have to really study and I have to get on my stuff and make sure that I understand each and every concept as the course progresses. As opposed to semester system, you might be able to have like a little more time to elaborate and explore that content material, that concept, because it's not as fast-paced as a quarter system. So this is also a pro because that might mean that you spend more time in office hours with your professors and you get to build your connection with your professors. You're able to spend more time in the class with them, spend more time outside of class with them, have them get to know you over a 15-week period as opposed to only a 10-week period, where a lot of professors, because they have so many students, might not get to know every single one of their students because it's such a fast-paced environment, and they might want to focus a little more on the material than they do in actually getting to know their students, which is not completely like a universal idea, because a lot of my professors I've gotten along with over office hours, over the course, and it just definitely depends on what kind of professors you're working with. But I definitely think that being a semester system just gives you more time in case you're kind of shy, or if you don't want to start right off the bat to get to know your professors, or you're trying to like see which classes you want to take and which professors you think you like. Being a semester system gives you a lot more time to make those kinds of decisions, which goes into dropping and adding classes for the quarter system, at least at Stanford, because Stanford runs on the quarter system. You have up to week 3 to determine whether or not you want to add or drop a class without having a W on your transcript. So usually for the quarter system, the course starts to take a little bit more of its pace or faster pace towards week 3. So you kind of have an idea of whether or not you like the course or the way it's structured or how much work you can handle with it. But I know for a semester system, it's very different because the deadline to drop or add a class is not at week 3, it might be at week 5 or 6, which is so much more time for you to explore that course and see your performance in that course, because I feel like your week 3 and how you're doing in that class in week 3 is not very representative, especially if the course picks up toward the end. You might be having an A in week 3 and then have a D- in week 9. So you won't know your actual performance or get to really get a feel of how you might perform in that class within that short amount of time. Whereas opposed to a semester system, you have a lot more time to decide that. So if you feel like you're kind of starting off strong, but then you're seeing that the material is getting a little harder and you don't think you can handle it, then you can drop the class without penalty. And you have more time to make that decision. So what comes with more time is also the fact that you get to go in depth with the material. I know I kind of covered this already, but it's also like, if you really like the material, you can take one class and really get into depth with it, as opposed to a quarter system. For example, I had to take chemistry for my fall quarter as a freshman, and I had to take the second part of chemistry. It's part of a series, so I had to take the class 2 times. So technically for 10 weeks each time, it was 20 weeks of chemistry, whereas I could have taken 15 weeks of a 1 semester course of chemistry in a semester system. I don't know if that makes sense. But basically, in order to get in depth with the chemistry material, I had to take 2 courses. As opposed to a semester system, I feel like it would only take 1 course for me to learn what I learned in those 2 courses. And because the quarter system only meets for 10 weeks, the class periods are actually longer than they are in a semester system. So class periods between an hour and a half, even 2 hours are a lot more common in the quarter system than they are in the semester system. Because you meet more times during the school year, then your class periods don't have to be that long. So a 50-minute class period is a lot more common in a semester system, which is adjusted for like a student's ability to focus. I feel like it's very hard to focus in a 2-hour lecture than it is in a 50-minute lecture, especially if you're meeting for that class for more time. As someone who is majoring in psychology, I know that deliberate practice, which is meaning for shorter periods over a long course of time, actually improves your performance more than doing a lot in a short period of time, which is a reason why cramming before a test doesn't work. But that does not stop me from doing it. My last pro for semester system is that it's easier to transition. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, most high schools and most students already are familiar with the semester system. They know how it's structured, they've seen it before, it's nothing new. So that when they go to college, the only difference that they feel is like the rigor of the classes and the structure of the classes maybe, but the structure of the school year is the same. As opposed to a quarter system, it's so different that you have to adjust to the fast-paced environment, and that might be a little difficult if you're already overwhelmingly taking in a lot of new things, especially as a freshman. I know I had to adjust to being away from family, I had to adjust to being on campus, living by myself, living with strangers, taking difficult courses, taking courses that I've never seen before. It's a lot of stuff to take in, and at the same time trying to have a social life. So the newness of the quarter system kind of added on to that. But it's totally cool. Like, I believe anyone can handle it. I definitely was able to do it, even with my public school, high school education that definitely did not prepare me for rigorous courses, much less rigorous courses in a quarter system in a fast-paced environment. But I managed, and all of my friends who are also fly identifying also managed. So it's definitely possible, and I don't think that if you're picking between colleges that you pick a college solely based on the fact that their semester system versus their quarter system. I feel like you should make a lot more research on what you want to do and what college you want to be at based on their resources, their faculty, the field of study that you want to do. That's totally dependent on you. And make sure to go check out my how to research colleges video so that you can get some guiding questions on what kind of questions you should be asking yourself when you're selecting these colleges. Now we're gonna move on to the cons of the semester system. So these are all the bad things, obviously that's what con means, but there are very many cons with the semester system as there are with the quarter system, so make sure to watch both videos. One of the cons of the semester system is that you're very limited in the amount of classes that you can take. So as I mentioned before, you have 12 quarters within a quarter system and only 8 semesters in a semester system, which means that if you're very indecisive and you don't really know what you want to study yet, you can walk into college, but you only have 4 semesters to figure that out. You have 4 sets of courses to really explore different fields and get a feel of what you want to do, because most colleges require that you declare by the end of your sophomore year. So technically you have a maximum of 4 semesters to do that, as opposed to a quarter system, you have 6 quarters to do that. So if you are interested in a ton of things, or if you're interested in nothing and you're trying to explore, the quarter system is definitely better for that situation. And for the same pro that I mentioned, where you're in a class period for a very long time, that could also be a con, because if it's a class that you really don't want to take and you're not interested in taking it and you regret it and you have no other option, let's say it's a prerequisite or you just have to take that course, you're in it for 15 weeks as opposed to only 10 weeks. It can be a con in that the class might get too in depth and you might not fully understand it, or you might not be able to absorb all of that information because it's so much within that time period. As opposed to a quarter system, you might only glide over certain concepts and get a better feel of a summarized version of that topic, especially if you're exploring different courses. And since you have fewer classes or fewer opportunities to take different classes, that means that you have fewer opportunities to improve your GPA. So I know that I took chemistry in my freshman year. I mentioned that a million times in like almost all of my videos because that class really traumatized me. But I got B's in that class, and those were the only classes that I got B's in. But because I am able to take a lot more courses, then I'm able to improve my GPA and get rid of those B's and like reduce the impact those B's have on my GPA. As opposed to a semester system, you might not have as many opportunities to do that because each class takes so much more space on your transcript and it weighs a lot more on your GPA, especially if you get a bad grade. And now I'm not saying that B's are bad grades. I know as a Stanford student, so many Stanford students are so worried about having 4.0s, and that's kind of the expectation because everyone had like a freaking 5.0 when they got admitted to Stanford, which I didn't. Check out my How I Got to Stanford with Low Stats video and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm not saying that B's are bad grades. B's are very good grades, and don't let anyone tell you differently. Another thing is that because you're taking less classes, that means that you have fewer professors, and that means that you have fewer opportunities to network with different connections, which may or may not be important, especially if you're applying to certain jobs, internships that require letters of recommendation. You want to make sure that you have a selection of professors that you can pick from and professors that you can connect with, as opposed to a semester system. You might not have as many options because you're not taking as many courses. So to summarize, the biggest pros of the semester system is that you have more time in class. That means that you have more time to connect with your professors, you have more time to review the material and understand the material, you are able to go more in depth with the material, and you have more time to drop a class. The transition of a semester system is also a lot easier, especially if you've already taken the semester system before in high school, and your class periods are shorter. And the cons of the semester system are that you're limited in the amount of courses that you can take. These limitations mean that the courses that you do take have a larger impact on your GPA, and difficult classes for a long period of time can definitely be a con if it's very difficult for you. And the final one is that you might not have as many professors to refer back to. So before I close off, I really want to emphasize that you should not be choosing your colleges solely based on whether they're a quarter system or a semester system. There are so many factors that you need to be considering when you're picking which college to go to, but I know that you're gonna make the right decision, and any college is gonna be really lucky to have you, and I really wish you the best of luck in your first year of college, your second year of college, or whatever year of college that you're in, or if you're not in college, I also wish you luck. Please let me know if this video was helpful. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at FirstGenFirst, on Twitter FirstGenFirst1, or send us an email at info@firstgenfirst.org. Thank you, bye. They are the fall quarter, winter sporter. And make sure to go check out my my god.